My name is Gabby, and this is Yappy Hour. I am your host on this lovely Friday morning. It's a little bit early for me to crack a cold one, so that's why we have our Bloom Sparkling Energy. Bloom was nice enough to sponsor me and send me a bunch of their new energy drinks, so we're so excited to try these. This is the flavor Strawberry Watermelon. Know and love Bloom from their greens powders. Really, really amazing supplements. They now have clean energy drinks. Super, super amazing. These also have a prebiotic inside of them as well. So really great for your gut health. If you have not tried these, 10 out of 10 recommend. Welcome, and thank you for tuning in today. This is episode 1 of Yappy Hour. Like I said, my name is Gabby. Some of you may already know me, whether personally or from social media. I do have a bit of a presence online, and that is part of the reason why I am sitting here on this couch today. Always wanted to have a podcast. It's been a dream of mine, like at least for the last couple of years, but I really didn't ever think that I would be sitting here doing this, just because I feel like we all know like podcast equipment is way too cheap. There are way too many girls out there with a microphone in their hand yapping away, and yet here I am, a girl with a microphone in my hand yapping away. So hopefully you guys are excited for what is to come. This is going to be just an introduction episode. So I feel like just to get a better idea of who I am and what this podcast is going to be about, I wanted to just like very quickly go into some backstory of where I came from, my story, how I got started on social media. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what you can expect from this podcast. So like I said, it's just an intro episode, not going to be the most riveting. We're going to get into like a little bit of tea and a little bit of bringing you up to speed on what's been going on in my life lately. But I really do want this to feel, which is part of the reason why I named it Yappy Hour. I want this to feel like you are just sitting down with your girlfriends, you're catching up over a little drinky drink, an iced coffee, a cocktail, preferably a spicy margarita if you know me at all. But unfortunately today while I'm filming, it is a bit early to start. So like I said, we're just going with the energy drink for today. But in the future, you will definitely find me with a spicy margarita in hand. I hope you have a drink too while you are sitting and listening to me yap away. We're just going to yap about anything and everything. And as you guys will soon find out, I'm a little bit all over the place, especially with this episode. We're going to kind of jump around. There's going to be some tangents. I'm definitely going to go off on some random stories here and there, but I promise I will tie it all together at the end with a pretty little bow. So just stick with me, I promise. Okay, let's start with a proper introduction. So as you guys know, my name is Gabby. I am 28 years old. I currently live here in the beautiful state of Florida. I am not, however, a Florida native. I'm the trope. I'm one of those people who came from a different part of the country, wanted to live by the beach, wanted the sunshine, wanted the easy way of life, and I invaded Florida. I'm one of the tourists that came to visit and stayed and moved in. So hate me all you want, but I absolutely love it here. I love my life in Florida. Me and my fiance met here in Florida. I conceived and had my son here in Florida. I have made some of the best lifelong friends that I'm going to be best friends with when I'm 90 years old here in the state of Florida. So I don't plan on ever leaving. Me and my fiance, we really, really love it here in Florida. So we're kind of starting to put down roots a little bit. We're going to get married here next year. Hopefully in the following year, we'll buy a house, start to grow our family, have more kids. So some very, very exciting things happening. But like I said, I did not always live in Florida. I'm pretty sure it's going on my 4th year living here. I could be wrong. I need to look back and think about it. Let's rewind though, and let's talk about my journey previous to living in Florida. So I am a Midwest girl. I grew up in Kansas, and yes, I've heard every single Kansas joke. There's nothing you can say that is going to be new. So yes, I know I'm not in Kansas anymore. That's one that I've heard like literally 1,000 times in my life. Everybody thinks they're so funny, but yes, I'm from Kansas, land of the Oz. I grew up there in the middle of nowhere in a tiny little town that I promise you have never heard of and that you will never visit in your entire life. But honestly, I loved my childhood. I loved my upbringing, and I really, now that I'm older and now that I'm a parent myself, I really do understand why my parents raised our family in Kansas. One, it's so cost effective to raise your children there because you can do a lot more on a lot smaller budget. So my family was not super well off. I did not grow up wealthy by any means. We did okay. A little bit later in my childhood, they started to do a little bit better. But when I was younger, they were not in a great financial spot. They had 5 small children. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was kind of struggling to open his new business. It was kind of those beginning years when it was still like growing pains. You know what I'm saying? Throughout that, obviously, living in a place like Kansas, we could still have a pretty charmed childhood. Loved the childhood that I had, and I really, really, really want to give my children a similar childhood of just playing outdoors with the neighborhood kids, coming home when the streetlights come on, just kind of feeling safe as well in my hometown. Like, growing up, I cannot remember a single time we locked our car. I cannot remember a single time we locked our house door. Like, I would just show up to a friend's house and just walk straight in their front door because nobody locked their doors. Everybody knew where everybody lived. Like, I even remember being a kid and like falling off on my bike and getting hurt, or the chain coming off my bike, and some random person in town would like help me or pick up my bike in their truck and give me a ride home. Like, everybody knew everybody. I lived in a town where you could not walk down the street without knowing the name of every single person that you passed. And I really loved, obviously there's pros and cons to that, because as a kid, it's very nice. It feels safe. Then when you become a teenager, it's like the small town vibes, the small town gossip. You can't do anything without your parents getting a phone call. And I know that firsthand. No matter what I did in that town, my parents got a phone call, or my grandma got a phone call saying, I saw your granddaughter holding hands with a boy or smoking a cigarette or whatever I was doing when I was 14 years old, 15 years old. But regardless, it was a really fun place to grow up. I feel like Kansas does not get its flowers. Like, it gets a lot of flack of like, oh, what even is there to do in Kansas? Like, it's so boring. I loved my childhood. I loved growing up there. And in a different lifetime, I would raise my family there. But it just doesn't feel like me anymore. Like, I always grew up feeling like there's something else out there. I always had this feeling of like almost not belonging in my small town. Like, I always felt like this is not where I'm meant to be. Like, there's something else out there. There are other people I'm meant to meet. There are places I'm meant to visit. And so throughout my childhood, I always kind of had that longing to like travel and go places. And my family was not one that really like traveled. Like, the first time I left the country was the day that I moved to France. So when I turned 18, I decided I was not going to go to college, which at the time was like a monumental decision. Like, looking back now, it's not that big of a deal. But in the moment, it felt life-changing because where I'm from, that's kind of just what you do. I feel like people my age, like, you don't really have a choice. It's like, that's what you do. You go to high school, you graduate, you go to college, and then you graduate. And a lot of my friends were going on to college. And there was a time when I really thought that I might, like when I was a sophomore, junior, even senior, like I applied, I got in. I just kind of made the game time decision that like, why am I going into debt? Why am I getting student loans? Why am I doing all of these things, going back to school for 4 years, literally, and be in so much debt just to get a job that I don't like, just to get a degree that I'm not passionate about? And so for me, it was like, I'm going to get some random education degree. I'm going to get some random business degree. And I just didn't feel like it made sense to me. And it felt like I was really going against the grain at that time, which for me wasn't a difficult thing because I feel like I've always had that streak of like rebellion in me. Not even rebellion, but just like I wasn't a follower. Like, I didn't follow what other people did. I was really kind of a free thinker in that way. And that's the way my parents raised me, which I'm so grateful for. They always raised me to question everything, to not go with the flow, to not just do something because somebody else is doing it or because somebody tells you to do it. Like, follow your gut feeling. If it doesn't feel right, question it. Ask questions. Look into it a little bit deeper and really think deeply about the decisions that you make in your life, to be very intentional. And so for me, I sat down with my parents, and for them, I think it was a little bit disappointing because they had very high hopes for me. They had a college fund ready for me and all these things, but I kind of just sat down with them and said, you know what? I don't think this is where I'm meant to be. I don't think this is my calling. I don't feel comfortable going down this route. And my parents were so supportive. And I honestly give them big props for how supportive they were, because I think if my 18-year-old daughter came to me and said, hey, mom and dad, I'm not going to go to college. I'm actually going to move to a different country where I don't know a single soul, where I don't know a single word of their language my entire life, and move to France. And they took it in stride, and they were like, we will support you with whatever you do. They didn't support me monetarily, but they did support me obviously just emotionally, and it supported me in making that big change in my life. And so I moved to France. I was an au pair, which is kind of a mix between a nanny and kind of a cultural exchange student. It was a really, really cool experience. I definitely recommend it to anybody who kind of has that itch where they want to travel, but maybe you can't afford to shell out thousands and thousands of dollars. So for me, it made it super affordable. I did a couple of like household errands and helped them with their kids and helped teach them English. did just like little tasks for them. In exchange, they gave me room, they gave me board, they gave me a car to use, and they paid me, I think it was like $150 or $200 a week. So there was a whole contract worked out. They paid for half my flight. I paid for the other half. I did have to get a work visa. So because I was supposed to be there for 9 months, anything over 3 months, you can't be on a regular just like visitor visa. I had to like go to Chicago, an interview with the consulate. Like I did a lot. I jumped through some hoops to go to this. But it was a really cool experience. And I might go a little bit deeper into that if it's something you guys are interested in. Like I might do a separate episode on being an au pair, how to be an au pair, how to find a family, kind of just more get into the nitty gritty of it all in my experience. But today, we don't have time to really go into the details, but essentially, I was an au pair. I lived in France. I only ended up staying, I think, 3 or 4 months. So I didn't stay the full term because 1, my host family ended up being not so great. And 2, it was during the time when we had the Paris attacks. So there was like a lot of terrorism happening in France, which was really scary. And the whole time my family was very worried because there were these train attacks, there were these bombs, there were these knives shootings, like so many crazy things happening with like ISIS and a lot of the like terrorist activity happening in France at that time. This was like 2015, 2016. So with that all happening, I decided, you know what, this is just like not worth it. I feel like I came, I saw, I conquered, right? I wanted to travel. I wanted to see all the things, live in a different place, learn a different language, meet new people, be immersed in a culture. And after 3 or 4 months, you really got that. And so instead of trying to find a new host family and kind of push through, I decided, you know what, this doesn't really feel right anymore. And I'm such a gut feeling person. You guys will learn this about me very quickly, is that I don't follow my heart. I don't think through things. Like if my gut tells me something, like it has never been wrong. And I don't have to have any evidence. I don't have to have any rhyme or reason. If my gut tells me something and I feel it deeply within myself that this is the truth, it always is the truth. And it always comes to light. Back home, I started applying for new positions. So when I was an au pair in France, it kind of lit a fire in me to work with private families. It was never something that I imagined myself doing professionally. But once I worked with this family, and these were a lot of like high net worth families, millionaires, people who had a lot of money, obviously could afford to hire somebody like me, personal assistant, a nanny, a household manager. Like I started looking into a lot of positions, worked for several other families, became a professional nanny, became a travel nanny. Like I did so many cool things. And it's another thing that I always tell girls in their 20s, like be a nanny, because again, being somebody who did not grow up with money, I did not grow up around country clubs. I did not grow up around all of these fancy restaurants and experiences and staying at the Ritz-Carlton. Like that was not a part of my stratosphere. Once I became a professional nanny and I started working for the families who that was their daily life, it also became my life. And it was such a cool experience in my 20s to like work for these families and have these connections. And like they literally like gave me the keys to the kingdom. These families would go away to Europe for a week, 2 weeks. Like they would give me their kids. They would give me the keys to their house, the keys to their Range Rover. Like they would say, here's $500, have fun with our kids. Plus they're paying me daily. Like it was such an amazing way to, one, make a good income. Like I was making such good money in my young 20s. And obviously that grew as I got older. I was charging upwards of $25, $30 an hour. So it can definitely be a lucrative career if you do the right things, get the right certifications, get the right experience, and really work your way up and work for these high net worth families. It is such a cool experience. So I tell everybody, like when you're in your 20s, nanny, work for these private families, because it truly opened so many doors for me, made me so many amazing lifelong connections, and it also just really prepared me for motherhood. Something that I've always been passionate about is the fact that I knew that I was meant to be a mother. I saw my mom growing up being a stay-at-home mom, raising her children, being there with us every single step of the way. And I have always known, like, I want to give my kids that too. Like, I want it to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, I don't need to have some fancy career. I don't need to be somewhere in some cubicle making 6 figures to feel my worth. I know that I will feel fulfilled in just being home with my children, raising them, being a stay-at-home mom, like being of service to my husband and my family. And that's not to say that I won't have other things. Obviously, I'm sitting here on this podcast. I do social media. It's kind of a side hustle, but again, like not my full focus. I think that my number one priority will always be my family, will always be my children, raising my children. Like if my kids need me, I'm dropping everything. Like I'm going to pick them every single time. And I think that's another reason why I can't be a career person, because I just cannot prioritize work over my children. And as much as people say it's not true, there comes a point where you have to choose. There's going to be a moment when your kid has called out sick 3 days in a row and your work says, hey, we can't have you leave another day. We can't have you take another day off. And so what do? You hire a sitter. You ask somebody else to pick up your kid from school. You have your husband take off work. Like, I don't know. I can't. I know it's different for everybody, but for me, like, I'm so unattached to jobs. I'm so unattached to money. Like, I truly will just quit on a moment's notice. And I have quit so many jobs literally at the drop of a hat because it just didn't feel right anymore, or it was people were disrespecting me, or people were taking advantage of me. Like, I am not one to suffer in silence. Like, if I'm anything, I am not a martyr. So I will be the first to cut off a connection that is not serving me, to cut off a job, a person, a friend. So don't ever cross me. Just kidding. So obviously I had a very fulfilling life, some amazing friendships, family, career, like everything in my 20s was just too good to be true, right? Everything was going as planned. I did want to be a young mom, and I wanted to meet that person who I was meant to raise my family with. Love life was definitely kind of the tricky pain point. Everything else seemed kind of too good to be true. Like, I wasn't really having any family issues. I loved all my friends. I had been best friends with my best friend since we were 12 years old. Like, I just felt very set in my life. I loved my job, the career path I chose. I was by all means like very happy and content. The only part of my life that was kind of tumultuous during my early 20s was definitely my love life. And with that, I had a boyfriend who I was like on and off with for several years. Like, we got back together, we broke up, we had all these issues. And I think at the end of the day, like, beyond any of the deep-rooted issues that we had, like, we did truly love each other. Like, he was my first love. And I think what was most difficult is realizing, and this was a realization I had to really, really come to. It took me years to have this realization. So I'm going to share this little piece of information with you guys. Write this down, okay? Listen very closely, because I wish somebody had told me this in my early 20s. Love is not enough. As much as you love a person, they can still be the wrong person for you. They can still be not a good fit. They can still have their own personal issues that make them not a good partner, not a good boyfriend, not a good future husband, and vice versa. Like, loving someone, I truly thought that when you love someone, like, love can conquer all, right? Love can undo a multitude of sins, right? As the Bible says. I'm pretty sure that's a quote in the Bible. But that is not the case with relationships. Obviously, once you're committed to somebody and you're married or in like a very deeply committed relationship, you have to love them through some very difficult times, like for better or for worse, right? But when you are young and you are in your teens or 20s and you meet somebody who you fall in love with, but you're not deeply committed to them, you can still walk away. I would say walk away, okay? Because I held on to that relationship for such a long time because I was so afraid that I would never find that type of love again, that I would never love somebody as much as I loved him, that I would never find somebody who loved me as much as he loved me. Because when you really love somebody, especially your first love, it's the first time you really bare your soul, right? You really say, like, this is me, real, raw, no filter. Like, you see it all, and they still choose to love you. Like, that is so powerful. Like, aside from family and a few maybe choice friends, like, you really don't get that kind of unconditional love. And the unconditional love of somebody who chooses it, right? They're not just like, you're my family member, I have to love you unconditionally. They are sitting there every day choosing to be with you regardless of your mistakes, regardless of your shortcomings, the fact that you're not a perfect person. And I think there are a lot of things that you can work on in a relationship, and that, you know, maybe if I had ended up with that person, like, I'm sure I would have been content in my life, but there was something better out there for me. And there's a reason why when two people, it truly just does not work. No matter how hard you try, it feels like you are banging your head against a wall. That's God telling you this is not the right person for you. Like, it's not supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to feel easy. It's not supposed to be hard to be in a relationship. Like, if it's not clicking, if it doesn't feel like they are your missing puzzle piece, I'm telling you, let that man go, because there is so much more out there for you. It's like the meme. Have you ever seen that meme on social media that's like Jesus holding like a huge, beautiful teddy bear behind his back with like a huge bow on it, and it's like brand new. And then there's a little girl holding this like tiny little tattered teddy bear. And she's like, but I love this teddy bear, but I've had it since the day I was born, but this is my teddy bear. We've always been together. And God is just like with this huge bear behind his back being like, just trust me, like, just let it go. He's asking that little girl to let go of her tattered little tiny teddy bear so that he can give her something 10 times better. Like, it's the fear of like loss. Like, I can't lose this little teddy bear, but she has no idea what God is going to give her in exchange for giving up that little thing. That was me, okay? I was that little girl holding that tattered little teddy bear, refusing to let go. I had a death grip on this thing because I was so afraid of losing this love that I had found. You genuinely think that everything happens for a reason, and I do not regret any of that relationship that I had with that person. Like, he truly brought me through some of the most difficult times of my life. He was such a good friend to me. He was such a good supporter to me. Like, he was there for me in some of my darkest moments, and I truly could not be more grateful. And I think that God puts people in our life for a reason. Onto that love for so long because I knew I needed that friendship, because by the end of it, it wasn't even romantic anymore. We really were just friends. But when I finally 100% let go of that connection and decided that, you know what, I need to truly move on to meet the person that God wants me to be with, that I'm meant to spend my life with, because this person is not it. He was the person I was meant to be with for a season. I am so grateful for the time we spent together, the memories we had. He truly taught me what love is. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have the standards that I had. I didn't know that a love to that depth was even possible. And for that, I'm forever grateful. Truly, truly, truly wish him the best in his life. Always be a deep supporter from afar. But the minute I let go of that connection, God gave me my future husband, and he put that person in my life. And it's I literally banged my head against the wall. Why didn't I do that sooner? Why didn't I have faith in God? Why didn't I trust? Why didn't I let go? But again, everything in God's timing. If I had let go of that relationship years ago, I probably would have never met my now fiance, because the timing wouldn't have aligned so perfectly the way that it did. And I think the timing is everything. But if I could go back and give any advice to my 20-year-old self, it would be just to have faith and just to realize God sees your heart and he knows your wants and your needs, and he has something so amazing in store for you. Truly just trust in God's plan, because it is so much better than your own. If I had gotten what I wanted when I was 19 or 20, if I had married the person that I thought that I was in love with when I was 17 years old, I would not be in such a happy, blessed position. So my 20s was a really fun time. I traveled, I loved, I lost, I made friends, I lost friends. It was such a transformative time in my early 20s. And I think that's the time to do it, right? Take all the risks, try all the jobs, quit the job, break up with the boyfriend, do all of the things, because you're never going to be that young again. You're never going to be more unattached than you are in that moment. And I'm so grateful I did all the things I did in my early 20s. I feel like I got it way out of my system. So by the time I moved down to Florida, I think I was around 24 or 25 years old. So I was kind of reaching my mid-20s. The classic, grew up in the Midwest, was never near the ocean, started to travel, started to see all these beautiful places. And I realized, I have free will. I can live wherever I want to live. Who really even needs an excuse to move to Florida? So I packed up my things, uprooted my life once again, as I had several times previously, and I moved to Florida. And when I moved here, I did not know a single soul aside from my sister. Did not have a place to live, didn't have any friends here. And so what I did, went on Facebook group for this area that was kind of like a roommate finding service. So I posted on this page and I said, hey, my name's Gabby, I'm 24, I'm looking for a roommate, blah, blah, blah. And I had this girl comment on the post, and she was like, hey, I don't know if you saw, but I sent you a message. And so I was like, wait, I didn't get a message from this girl. I'd gotten some messages in my DMs. And so I'm like, where's this girl's message? Then I realized that there was a hidden folder where messages that seemed spammy or whatever kind of got filtered out. To this day, I don't know what it was, but I swear what drew me to this specific girl's message. There was a girl who had sent me a message, seemed very nice, but her profile picture was glowing. I swear, something just drew me to it. And I just had this gut feeling this person is somebody who I need to talk to. So I click on her message, this beautiful townhouse she had owned. She told me the price point of the rent. It was a 3-bedroom, but she wanted to have a guest room, only be us 2 as roommates. It had a beautiful pool. It was just a dream spot. And I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit out of my budget. So I had just moved to Florida, hadn't started a new job yet. And it was at the top of the budget of what I wanted to spend. But again, it was just that gut feeling that I was this is where I'm meant to be. So I went and met with her in person. She gave me a tour of the townhouse. And from that small interaction, I just knew. I was this is someone who's meant to be one of my people, I just immediately felt the connection of this is where I'm meant to be. And so I literally think I signed that day. We signed a 6-month lease or something like that. And so I moved in, and it ended up being truly one of the best butterfly effects of my entire life. I, to this day, am so grateful that I found her on a random Facebook site, because she became one of my very best friends. She introduced me to the best group of girlfriends I could have ever wished for. I feel like that's something like in my early 20s, I always kind of craved having like a big girl group because I never had that. Like I had like my one or two best friends. We had been best friends since we were 12 years old, but I never had that like huge group of girls. Like I always wanted like that girl gang. And meeting my roommate, she introduced me to the best group of girls who ended up becoming one of the biggest support systems I had because 5 months after moving to Florida, I unexpectedly was pregnant. So I had an unplanned pregnancy. With that, the father of the child did not want to be involved. He very much wanted me to have an abortion, put the baby up for adoption. He was like, I'm not ready to be a dad. We're not ready to be parents. But for me, it was never a question. The minute I saw those two little pink lines on that pregnancy test, the minute that I knew that I was having a baby, that I was pregnant, that he existed, I knew that I wanted this baby. I knew that I would keep him. I knew that I would literally cross over oceans for this child and do whatever it took to make sure that he had a place in this world. And I could not be more grateful that I found that strength within myself, because the ripple effect of having this child in my life, I could not imagine my life without my son in it. He is the most lovely, beautiful, gorgeous, rambunctious, funny, just like adventurous little boy, the most boyish little boy that you've ever met. And I truly, like, I know I sound a little bit biased because obviously he's my son and everybody loves their own kids, but he is the most lovable little boy and he is such a light. Like, the way that he's not only impacted my life, but like the ripple effects of everyone around me, like my parents, his great grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles, friends. Like, he has truly brought such a light to so many people's lives that I cannot imagine a world without it. He puts a smile on strangers' faces. Like, he is such a funny, fun little boy. I could go on for hours about how much I love him. Like, he truly, I feel so blessed that God chose me to be his mom. I'm really so grateful that I found the strength within myself to say, like, I don't care what you want. I don't care if you don't want to be a dad. I don't care if you don't want to be involved. I don't care if I have to literally do this completely by myself. I am having this baby and I'm going to be a mom and I'm going to make it happen. And I did. I made it happen. And I'm now engaged to the most amazing man. I feel so blessed that I did meet my now fiance, Nick. You guys will meet him on our next episode. You guys can meet him a little bit more and hear a little bit more about our story and how we met and our dating journey. But again, I think it's important to know, like, I'm not special. Like, nothing about me is any different than any other woman who is put in that position. We all have it within us to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to listen to you and what you want. I'm not going to make a permanent decision based off these temporary circumstances. Like, it doesn't have to be a perfect circumstance to be able to be a mom or to have this child or to fight for their right to exist in this world. And I wish that more women knew, like, you are enough and you can do it by yourself and you don't need him to be involved, right? A year or two from now, you don't know what position you'll be in, right? You may be married to the love of your life and he's an amazing father figure and adopts your child. So it's just really important, I think, to talk more about my experience of being single and pregnant and being a solo mom, because it's truly not something that is talked about very often. And I want to change that. So that's also part of the reason why I even started posting on social media. So if you follow me on social media, you know a lot of my content is based around my experience of being a single mom and being a solo parent and being single and pregnant as well. It's definitely something that I'll never stop doing. I'll never stop posting about my journey. I will never stop telling my story, because the amount of women that DM me daily saying, like, I'm in the same position as you, I'm single and pregnant, he doesn't want to be involved. Because I saw one of your videos, I knew that I could do it alone. Like, I decided not to get an abortion. I decided to keep my baby because I saw that you did it and you were a solo parent. So for me to know that telling my story, even if it just helps one woman feel like you are strong enough, like you can do it by yourself, not to ever let a man bully you into a decision that you do not want to make. Like, it is so, so important for me. And so that's why I think I'm going to actually do a separate episode as well. So again, not to bait you, but stay tuned. I'm going to do a whole episode purely based on my experience being a single parent, being a solo parent, being a single mom, going through my pregnancy solo, all of that good stuff. I'm going to get into the nitty gritty, give some resources to help you as well, so that any woman who's put in that position, any woman who feels like they are alone and they're going to go through it solo, hopefully they'll be able to listen to that episode and it'll give them some insight and some strength, and honestly just make them feel less alone. Because I wish when I was going through it that there were more people talking about it. I wish I could have found me when I was going through my solo pregnancy, talk about their experience and see them also come out on the other side and see where their life has gone. I think is just so inspiring and it's so powerful. So I will never stop telling my story. Like I said, it's something that you guys are going to hear more on this podcast. We're going to talk a lot more about it. I'm going to have some guests also that are solo parents and that are single moms. And we're going to have some of these really deep, important conversations. So as much as we like to yap and keep it light and keep it fun, there are some more serious conversations and topics that I do want to talk about as well, because I just think they're important and I think that they're not talked about enough. So I went through my solo pregnancy. I was a solo mom for the first year and a half of my son's life, doing it completely solo. I did end up having to go back to work full time. So because I was the full financial provider, I don't get child support. I've never gotten a cent or a dime from anyone. I have had 100% of the financial responsibility since the day my son was born. And actually, even before he was born, while I was pregnant, I was put in a position where I had to go back to work full time to be able to provide for my son. So when I did do that, it was one of the most difficult times of my life, because I have never wanted anything other than to stay home with my babies. Like, I don't want to miss those moments. Like, I want to be with him every hour of every day, and to spend 8, 9, 10 hours away from him on any given day at work and have him be, in a day school, a daycare with a nanny. Like, it was such a hard time for me. And I'm glad that it was short-lived, because when I met my now fiance, my son was about 15 or 16 months old. After a few months, he met my son. A few months after that, we ended up moving in together. A few months after that, he became like a full-fledged father figure to my son. And then we kind of came to the decision that now that we lived together and my fiance was, taking on a majority of the financial burden at that point, it didn't really make sense for me to keep working full-time just to pay for my son to be in school and just to pay for a nanny. So I did end up quitting my job and becoming a stay-at-home girlfriend, I guess. It was before I was even engaged. Became a stay-at-home mom with my son, which I am so blessed, and I feel so, so grateful that my fiance put us in the position where I am able to stay home with him. Obviously, I do still do some part-time stuff with social media where I make an income, podcast now. So there's always something that I'm doing. I always have a side hustle. I'm always, dog sitting, house sitting. Like, there is always something on my plate. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not the type of person that I can just do nothing. So I do have my little side hustles, which I'm also very blessed and very grateful to have, to be able to still contribute financially, still save for my son's future, and do all of those amazing things. But we are now obviously engaged. So after about 8 or 9 months, we ended up getting engaged, which we are so, so excited about. We cannot wait to get married and to grow our family. And we have so many big plans for this next year that you guys will definitely hear about first here on this podcast. This is where all the hot tea is going to be. So if you want to keep updated and know what's going on in my life, definitely tune in on Fridays, because like I said, we are going to try to drop a new episode every single Friday. And I'm going to hold myself to that. We're going to do a couple more solo episodes. And then I'm also going to do an episode with my fiance, so that, like I said, you guys can meet him and get to know him a little bit better. Ask him any questions you want. Also, if there are any guests that you guys want to see on the podcast, if there's someone that you're like, I would love to hear them on your podcast, hit me in my DMs. I have a separate TikTok for this podcast where I'll be posting clips. That's the best DM to reach me if you want to be a guest, or if you want to nominate somebody as a guest, and also just for questions. So if you have questions for me, if you have questions for my fiance, anything you want covered on this podcast, ask them there, ask the comments, DM me, because I will try to get to them all. We'll try to answer them all. So definitely reach out there. I'm more than happy to take any requests. But I do have some very big plans in store for this podcast. I have some really, really high hopes, and it's going to be a fun time. Like I said, just grab your bevy, have a little yappy hour, happy hour, chat with the girlies. And I also don't post a lot of long form content. So if you're somebody who follows me, maybe on Instagram or TikTok, you probably see a lot more of my short form content. So when I first started TikTok, again, I was single and pregnant, and it was really just an outlet. I never really thought anything would come of it. I wanted to just kind of get things off my chest. It was therapy for me. I wanted to talk about what I was going through, being single and pregnant, the struggles of being a solo parent. And obviously, as time went on, it began to grow, and it grew into something that I could have never imagined. The most amazing, supportive group of women. And I truly, I don't know what I would have done without them. They carried me through some difficult times. Whenever I was going through something hard, going through being single and pregnant, going through postpartum, going through being a single mom dating, I put it all out there. You guys heard it all. You heard the crazy dating stories. And then obviously when I met my now fiance, you guys are getting a different side of me, a much softer stay-at-home mom version that sometimes I feel isn't as interesting to my followers. I feel people are kind of oh, well, they like to follow in the struggle. And then once you make it out on the other side, it's kind of well, that doesn't make for good TV. That's not as fun and interesting anymore. It's kind of just now I just live my boring little life. But again, like I have a really amazing group of women, some loyal followers who like to keep up with my life. So I'm very grateful for that. Again, you all are the reason why I'm even sitting here on this couch today, the reason why I even have a podcast or I have a platform to have these conversations. So thank you, thank you, thank you a million times over. I would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for the amazing women who have given me this platform. Feeling recently like a little bit discouraged on social media. Not that I'm not still making a good income from it, because I definitely am. But I do feel like my engagement has been really, really different since the switch. So ever since the algorithm on TikTok switched, I feel like a lot of my longer form content is not hitting the way it used to. Like I used to make lots of like 5-minute long, minute long videos. But now I feel like they just want like the quick switch, like 6-second long video, voiceover kind of thing, which is great. Those are fun. I will always keep posting those too. But I'm really grateful to be able to have something like this that is a little bit more long form where we can have these conversations. You guys can just get to know me a little bit better. Like you can really like see the inner workings of Gabby and the things that I think about and the things that I am passionate about and I care about, and just be able to kind of hone in a little bit more on topics as well. Like I said, each episode going forward is going to be themed. So there'll be like a specific topic that we're going to spend, 30, 45 minutes, an hour long, just chatting about, taking questions, doing all that good stuff. So we are probably currently watching this video. We have had a little bit of technical difficulties getting this on the podcast platforms. I'm posting this for the visual listeners and the visual watchers on YouTube. So if you're watching this episode, because it's the first one, it may just be on YouTube, but stay tuned. I promise wherever you get your podcasts, you will find Yappy Hour. It will be on Spotify, Apple Music, all those good places, but we are just working out some kinks and some bugs. So may take a little bit of time, but please be patient with me. This is my first time having a podcast. I'm new to this, just as new to it as you probably are. I don't know what I'm doing, right? I'm just a girl with a microphone. So please, I'm just a girl. Give me some grace. It's coming, I promise. But if a podcast episode is not out every Friday, you have full permission to come at me in the DMs, message me, comment, call me, tell me where is my podcast, because I might need a little bit of accountability with the upload times. But like I said, starting off strong, we're going to try to keep it rolling every single Friday. Let me know what you guys want to hear, what topics you want me to cover. Seriously, open to all suggestions. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for even being here today, listening to this. I truly could not be more excited to be able to sit here and yap with you guys every single week. I'm excited for you guys to hear more about my journey, more about the things that I've been through, and more about what's brought me to where I am today, because it has been quite the journey, as some of you know. But if you don't already, follow me on socials. I post a lot and kind of keep up to date on those as well. TikTok is Not a Regular Nanny. Instagram, Not a Regular Nanny, which I wanted to talk about that too, because it's something that people are really confused about, my username. When I first started TikTok, I was a professional nanny. So I had planned on posting kind of nanny content, relatable stuff. Then I didn't ever really use that account until I became single and pregnant. So when I was single and pregnant, then I started posting my journey. It kind of just snowballed. And now I feel like I'm at a point where it's just part of my brand. I do want to go through a rebranding, so that's coming soon. I want to change my username. I want to change my email. It's just all interconnected right now with some brand deals I have, so I can't do it quite yet. But coming soon, I do want to do just like a total refresh, rebrand, something that feels a little bit more like me and where I'm at right now in my life. Because obviously I'm not a professional nanny anymore. I don't really do that. It's not really a big part of my life. And it's also confusing for people. So they see my username and they're like, oh, is that her kid, or is she the nanny? Like, is she the mom? Like, people are just always so confused. But as of right now, you can find me on TikTok and on Instagram at Not a Regular Nanny. I'll put it on the screen here so you can find it a little bit easier, and I'll link it in the description. But yeah, keep up with me there. Like I said, I post a lot more day-to-day content there. The weekly pod where we kind of choose a topic to really deep dive. Things that you can expect to see from us soon is going to be a co-pod with my fiance, Nick. We're going to talk about health and fitness and our journey of meeting and our love story and all of that great mushy gushy stuff. Doing a podcast, having my best friend Mary as a guest as well. We've been best friends since we were 12. She does some really cool things in her community. She lives back in Kansas City, but she'll be here in a couple weeks. We're going to film that for you, which is going to be so fun. And then I'm also going to drop a solo pod about my single and solo parent journey. So I know that that's one that's very, very highly awaited by a lot of women who are going through something similar. So stay tuned. That one will be posted as well sometime soon. But like I said, thank you again for tuning in today. It was so fun being able to sit down and yap with you guys and kind of give you a backstory on who I am and what this podcast is going to be. Thanks for yapping with me, and I will be seeing you guys again very, very soon. Cheers.